Hey, it's Noelle from Country Credits. I'm here with Alex Mather, an Australian country music artist and songwriter. So it's so great to have you. I know we're on different time zones, but yeah, I'm happy to have
Thanks
you.
for having me on. Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah. For those who don't know about you, I'm sure that they're gonna love this interview and love getting to know you. But do you want to like kind of bring us in on how you got into country music, being, not even from America, and like what the scene's like in Australia and where you are today, and I guess like the whole journey growing up and stuff like that.
Yeah, so I was born in a place in Australia called Bundaberg, which is it's a pretty small town. If you drive far enough, you'll eventually find it. Um, and both my parents brought me up on country music, so it was all the Alan Jackson, the Garth Brooks was like massive in my household. Like the back when the CD stackers were a thing, it was just his CDs across everything. So I was brought up on it was always country music. I always say I didn't even know who Katy Perry was until I was like 16, 17 years old because I never really listened to like mainstream radio or anything like that. And through that you kind of meet people at school who have similar interests and you listen to the music together and those kids that I was with at school they played we have a sport in Australia called NRL, which is our like NFL. I would say it's like our national code kind of thing. And so I started playing that and got to a pretty high professional level. Was signed at 15, went to top grade, all of that kind of stuff. And through that, I actually had a knee injury that was only meant to put me out for 6 months, but they messed up the surgery and it put me out for like a year and a half. So through that time, I I'd always been playing guitar on and off, like since I was 10, but never really actually sat down to make it a thing. So through that recovery time, I started playing guitar and learning all my favorite songs. I'm like, what else am I gonna do? I can't walk, I can't run. I'm like, may as well learn this.
Wow.
And then back when Facebook was like massive and videos could go viral and like I just started posting covers. I'm like, and trust me, these covers back then sucked. Like even my family would be like, you can play guitar, but please don't sing.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
I know. So I was just posting them. Nothing was really coming of it until I did a cover of like I did like one of those like pop goes country kind of type covers of chasing cars.
Oh,
And
wow.
it just took off. Like it was one of those viral videos that I went to school and they're just like, oh my God, I've seen your video everywhere. It's crazy. Um and then a lady who was my first proper like ever manager seen me on Facebook and was like, hey, we'd love to fly you down to Sydney. We're doing a writing camp. And I'm like, at this time, like, had no idea about writing camps, about like groups getting together to write songs for other artists. Like, I had no idea about any
Right.
of this kind of stuff. So I'm like asking her, like, what is a writing camp? And I'm trying to explain to my parents, like, yeah, this lady wants to fly me down to another city with a bunch of people and we sit in rooms and write songs. And they're like, but I don't really know about
So
this,
weird.
Yeah, like this sounds weird. But I'm like, no, trust me, it'll be good. And so she kind of gave my parents heaps of information about it. And we didn't really, like have the money to fly me down. So I was honest with her. I'm like, no, I can't really come. Sorry, I can't afford it. And she's like, no, we love you. We'll pay for you to be down here. And I'm like, people do that? I'm like, what is, And so I went down there and like started writing and met a few people and yeah, that was the first time that it ever really I'd written songs before, but they never really go to that next level of like you can listen to it on your phone. They usually just stay as a voice memo. They never actually get recorded. So I'll have to find it because it's horrible, but it was the first one that I ever did. So that ended up kind of inspiring me to start posting and learning about production and how to write songs, not knowing that there's a structure of like hit songs and then obviously slow songs and tempos and BPMs and all that kind of different stuff. Took a deep dive into that, and that's when I started to get into like the production side of music. And I was always starting to go into studios, and you're paying money here, paying money there, and all this kind of stuff. And I thought, why don't I just like save up, buy all the gear myself,
Mhm.
get in a studio, buy all my guitars, my basses, everything, and just learn how to do it from scratch.
Right.
Um, and so I started doing that and getting into it and watching YouTubes. And I was really fortunate enough. There's an amazing producer in Sydney, and he was really kind enough to just let me sit in on some sessions and kind of watch what he does, how he does it, all that kind of stuff. And then I moved into a what was it, two-bedroom house where we set a studio up in the lounge room, which like I feel so sorry for the neighbors because we would pump that music so loud.
What's the land room? Is that like your living room type thing?
Yeah, 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 yeah. The lounge room's like the living room,
Wow.
um and how it was like a apartment kind of thing. How it was stacked was there's someone on the bottom, we were in the middle, and then there's someone on top.
Oh, oh my gosh.
Yeah, yeah, and obviously being musicians, you're awake at like 3 a.m. You get an idea, like, oh,
Yeah.
that's right.
Yeah.
And you're not really thinking about the other neighbors. You're just excited about what's about to come out of this session. And so halfway through the song, you'd hear from underneath they have a broom on the roof. Oh, shut
Oh
up.
my gosh.
Yeah, and that's where the artist stuff started to come into it because I was like writing all these songs and putting my voice onto it, and not really like I'd send them out and you get a few things here and there, but everyone just kept saying like, why don't you just record them yourself? Like, why don't they be your songs? So as you do, you record heaps of songs and you start creating an album, which you think you're going to release, but then it turns out that those songs aren't really that great. There's better songs to come.
Yeah.
Um, and then speeding the process up, I started posting on YouTube. And then that kind of led me to where I am today. My record, not my record label, but they are a record label, but more of a management team, found me on YouTube, and they're in Phoenix, Arizona, actually. And
Oh,
so they picked me up, signed me, flew me over there, and that was an. I've actually had two of those occasions where the first one was with the ladies, like, "Oh, we want to bring you to Sydney." The second one was with my manager. Now he's like, "I want to bring you across the world."
wow. This was
My
always
parents all
right.
say that again. Sorry.
This was always country, like country music was always the genre that you stuck to.
Yeah, always country. I did like a little bit of pop in between, but it was because I was managed by a pop manager.
Okay.
And so when I tried to do country music, it kind of like it was always just pushed in that direction. Like, oh, that's cool, but let's do pop
Right.
productions. Always country songs, and like they would always start guitar with me imaging like country music. And then for some reason, the producers I was working with, it would just end up as a pop song. And I'm like,
Mm.
I don't really like this.
It's
And
not
so
your yeah.
yeah, I was just in that lane for a bit, and you kind of just stuck where you know you, everything that was on the radio at that time and kind of everything that's popping up on Spotify is all even at that time when it was still country, it was more going down that pop lane of like it wasn't really country anymore. So you're just listening to that and kind of just like, oh, whatever. If the producers I can work with can
Yeah.
only do that, I'm not going to try force them to do something else. I was like, okay, whatever. Um,
Yeah.
so
That's
yeah, always country music, and got flown across the other side of the world and signed a deal, and started releasing music. And yeah, it's been a very crazy journey from playing sport to doing music.
that's great. So it was never even like a thought, like you never thought of it when you were doing sport. Wow, that's crazy.
I was that kid that the teacher says to you, like, what if sport doesn't work out? Like, what if it doesn't work out? You need to study hard. And I'm like, I don't need to study hard. Sport is gonna work. And then what happens? You get an injury, and then you got to find something else. And then I was just pretty lucky enough that I fell into music.
Wow. So okay, so when did the three number ones happen?
So within that
So
time when I was living in the two-bedroom apartment, we wrote my first ever number one, which is called Middle Ground. We wrote that 2 years before it was released, and this is a like exciting thing to talk about because a lot of musician fans think the song just gets written on that day and it's released in a month, and it's like that's sometimes it sits in the bank for years and years and years until someone hears it, plucks it out, and goes, "Can I have this one?"
great.
Um, And we'd actually had a few artists that had heard it and kind of asked us, like, can we release that? And we just didn't think it was right. And so the first one just sat there and sat there and sat there until the pop manager at the time was managing a country artist and said to us, please just let her have this song. And
Oh my
so I was
God.
like, okay, let her have it. And yeah, literally got released and we didn't think anything of it. And um, got a message like, "Hey, congrats on your first number one."
That's crazy.
Yeah, so that was and then they came pretty quickly after that. The second one was 6 months after that. Same situation. We written it, heard absolutely nothing back. Didn't even know there was any vocals being tracked. Nothing. And then we sent this demo. I was like, "Hey, um, we know we know this isn't usually how it goes, but we heard the song and we love it. We just wanted to put our voice on it and see
Wow.
if you liked it." And we're like, "Yeah, we love it." Yeah, so they're all so similar stories. Literally, they just sat there, nothing came from it, and then one day they're like, "Hey, we're gonna release this," and you get a call, you got your first number one.
That's
Sweet.
exciting. So how do you feel like now, I guess like with your artistry and then your songwriting, like how do you like one more than the other? Do you feel like you have to be writing your own songs if you're an artist? Because I know you write all your own songs or co-write on them. So that's
Yeah, all right. Yeah, I write majority of my own stuff. Like I'll write 100% of it and then send it across to my manager, who's the other co-writer, and he'll just like. I'm a real big fan of how the American slang is very different to the Australian, so I love like getting
Hmm.
that in there. For me to naturally try put that in there, it's probably going to sound a bit cringy. So if I send that over to him and he's like, "Oh no, we would say this," like in Australia we have like utes, which is like a forerunner type thing, and
Oh, okay.
so
That's
yeah, like if I said "ute" in a song, that sounds a bit like weird, but
yeah.
he's like, nah, say forerunner or do that kind of thing. So, writing most of it, it's good, but that I I can't pick between a favorite because I love doing the artist singing and I love being in the crowd, but I also love those moments that I get to experience as an artist. I get to create those as a producer songwriter for other artists. So I
Super.
kind of get like yeah, I get both sides of it. It's I couldn't pick one, but I love them both.
Oh, and that's why I'm so excited to interview you because you do like usually there's a songwriter or an artist songwriter, but it's rarely a songwriter, artist, producer. So it's so cool. Um, I mean, I know you don't do like tons of producing, but do you want to chat a little bit about like the production side and how involved you are now?
Yeah, I like it's I keep it behind the scenes, but I'm producing like every day.
Yeah.
Like my days are literally basically I wake up like 6:30, go to the gym, I'm in the studio. I mix and master as well. That's one thing that I just kind of like keep
Yeah.
to the artist that I'm with. Yeah, it's so I'll wake up, probably look over a mix that it's ready to send off and make some little adjustments, send that off, and then by 10 o'clock I'm in a session, writing and producing, and then the my artist time comes at like 5 p.m. So like once the day's over, I'm like, it's time to work on my stuff now.
Wow.
But the production side, I'm like fully into it. Kind of do everything from top down, write the song, produce the song, mix it, master it, and I've recently just and here's one thing we were talking about, kind of off about like the promotion of Australian music and country music's very different. This is one of those things that in Australia, not many people use session players. Like it's not like a thing here. They just kind of do everything themselves.
Wow.
And I didn't know that until I came to Nashville. Um, and they're like, yeah, everyone here uses session players. Like that's the thing. Like you've got the best in the world. Why wouldn't you use them?
Mhm.
And so now I've made some really great connections over there, um and now I've started using session players, and like my stuff before was good, but now just getting the best in the world to play on it instantly, it's just like another step above.
Yeah. So how often do you go back and forth to Nashville? And like when was your first time in Nashville? And also like I guess as we're covering these bases, like are you when you are producing music, is most of your fans over in the US or are they mostly in Australia?
Most of my fans are in the US, which is awesome because that's kind of what I'm going for. Like I was
Right,
talking about getting that American slang like
right.
into it. Um, Australia is really like a. Do you guys know about tall poppy syndrome? You know what that is?
I don't know. I don't think
It's
so.
like it's like they Australia won't claim you as their own until you're doing good somewhere else, and then they'll claim you because they just kind of like a lot of people here don't want you to do better than them, which is very different to experience when I came to Nashville because everyone wants to help you, and if
Yeah.
there's something they can do for you, they will.
Yeah.
So I
Ooh.
kind of want to.
Wow.
I've always planned to try target kind of the American and the UK market, with hopes that Australia goes, okay, we'll claim this dude now.
Yeah,
uh,
crazy.
my first my first trip to Nashville was, I can't remember the exact month. It was this year, the start of this year. Oh, it was my birthday, May. There you go. So May was my first trip, and that was kind of just like a feeler trip as to I wanted to see where my writing and my production was at in terms of to the people who have been doing it 20 years, 30 years plus. And it kind of gave me that extra confidence that, all right, you're at the right spot. Like, you're at a great spot for where you're at, and it's time to really kick it into the next gear. So the first time was this year, and we were there for about 3 weeks and met a lot of great people and a lot of connections and producers and writers and management teams and all that kind of stuff. And then next year, we're trying to be like every second month, spend a lot of time there.
That's so cool. Um, yeah, it must be like you get there, what like it must just be so different. And to be surrounded by people who like you grew up on country music, but grew up on it, and like most people around there grew up on it, it's so refreshing, I'm sure for you. You feel like you fit in.
Yeah, it is very easy because a lot of people here like they're kind of like secret country lovers. So even if they like country, they're not going to tell you that.
That's
They're not
great.
just going to, yeah, that. But you'll see them at the shows. You'll get in their car and it'll be playing. Like you just know that they love it, but they don't want to say it. Whereas going to Nashville and even in LA and Phoenix, you talk about country music and you can just see the love for it. They're
Right.
like, what I have so I can share that. You're not trying to get something out of someone that they're giving it to you. You're like, I like country music, and then you can just talk forever about it.
Country music has blown up like in New York too. It's so big now, and that was not a thing like 5 years ago. So, how has like the Australian, I guess, country music scene grown in your eyes lately?
I think it's grown for two reasons. One, a lot more people are touring here. A lot more American country artists are touring here, and Canadian artists actually are touring here as well, which is great to see. And kind of them touring, a lot of pardon me, sorry, a lot of people are starting to kind of post photos about, oh, I went to this concert and I went to that concert. So the more people, like the awareness of country music and how many people actually love it here is really starting to skyrocket. So that's in terms, a lot more people are buying tickets to shows,
Yeah.
the head festivals, they're posting, they're sharing Spotify country music more, Apple country music more, everything because they're not afraid to show now because there's a lot more awareness around it.
That's exciting though. That's exciting that you're like part of this uphill in a good way. It's climbing in the right direction. So that's exciting that you're kind of in from ground level.
Yeah, it's so good to see too because it's been like it really is a slog. Just like go back 5 years, like you're saying,
Yeah.
it was nothing. Like no one was talking about it. You would talk to someone about it, and they're like, "Oh, not that country music stuff."
Even
And
here
you're like,
though,
oh,
seriously, not in Nashville, but like, yeah, in parts of the country, that's how it was. And then now it's just so mainstream. Obviously, it's still hubs of in the nation where like it's more popular, but yeah.
"Yeah,
So, okay, so let's talk about your recent album because it's so good. And
yeah."
I mean, you have a lot of good stuff on there, but that summer almost has 1 million streams, which is super exciting. So do you want
Well,
to like talk about the story behind that song, and then did you not expect that to be the one that listeners resonate to the most?
it's such a, I'll start with the listener resonate with thing because it's like I'm a big believer of going with what you feel. Like, you know, some people might be like, that's not the right song or so on and so forth. But like I said to my team when we first got together, if I feel something's right, I'm gonna go with it because that's just how you got to be. If you're gonna do it for a long time, you got to
Yeah.
believe in what you're doing. And
Mm.
I played that summer to a few people, and their reactions were exactly how I felt with the song. So I'm like, all right, this is either gonna do really well, or we all suck at judging songs. Like either way. So when we dropped it and it started to do well, I'm like, yes, that gives me confidence for the rest of the stuff that I feel good about. So it was yeah, it was one of those things where like we know this is gonna do well, or we're very wrong in what we feel.
Wow.
Yeah, and the and that was kind of like the feel with every song we probably did like from February to now there's probably been about 80, 90 songs that
Wow.
we've put together for this EP. um and kind of that's just how we picked them. There was no is this better for radio, is that better for summer? There was none of that. It was just, does this song feel good to us? Yes, it does. Awesome. Does this song feel good? No.
Hmm. So was there like a was that something that was from an experience you were feeling, or so I assume if it wasn't just like, oh, this is good for radio.
Yeah, it just literally just went from feel, and me and my manager are usually on the same page with everything. Like if I'm it's one of those things where if I'm feeling something but I'm like, oh, I could be wrong here. And then I just ring him and say, hey, I feel this. He goes, oh, I'm so glad, I've been feeling the same way. You
Yeah.
know, like so we're usually on the same page. So I'll send him a song and be like, I've been loving this one. And then he'll be like, me too. I'm like, sweet, that's on the EP.
Nice. Um, so what's your favorite, do you have a favorite song that you've written and released at the moment?
I would probably say probably Hell on My Heart.
Mm.
Follow My Heart. It's the first track off the EP, and it was the one that's taken literally the longest journey to get on the EP because it was a song that I said I really love the lyrics. I hate the production, and so it's taken three different turns of where it's been.
Wow.
Um, yeah, so it was like it's been three completely different songs, and we finally landed on something that I'm like, okay, this feels good, and I like this. So it was one of those songs that I thought wasn't gonna make it, but I felt good about the lyrics, so I just needed to feel good about the production, and we finally got it there.
Isn't it funny that like the production can change a song completely? Like it could be like you said, like three different songs and it's the same lyrics, and that's crazy.
I know we just wrote one. It's called Beautiful Obsession, and it's like it's such a cool song, but there's so many. It can either be like a really slow beautiful song because the chorus kind of has that feel, but the verses are also a bit cheeky. It's about like all the things that people do with each other that like you'd only see when you're with each other, all those like weird
Oh,
twerks
cute.
and freaks, like that kind of stuff. And so it can either be really cheeky production or really like beautiful piano type ballad type. So
Oh,
we're
okay.
that one's gonna be a fun one to play around with.
That's really fun. You kind of remind me of like Thomas Rhett vibes, I guess, in the sound, but your vocals are really good now. Like, so what happened? Like you said people didn't think you had good vocals. Did you take vocal lessons?
I've never taken a single vocal lesson in my
Ah,
whole life. I
voice.
just like I would just sing with like the records. And because everything today is so perfect, like if you're trying to sing with those records, I guess in terms that is doing vocal lessons because they sing perfect and they take vocal lessons. So and you really do see it like even through producing and writing for other artists from when I first started to now, even like let's say you have your best singers in the world and then you have your beginner singers. Even the beginner singers are at a better level because they're literally singing along with perfectly in tune vocals
Yeah,
constantly. And so yeah, just keep I just kept trying and trying and trying until one day someone said, hey, it's not too bad.
so awesome. So what are the shows like that you've been doing, like in Australia? And do you have plans to come and do stuff over here?
Yeah, so we got a few connections over there that we want to jump on a few opening shows and play like Whiskey Jam and that kind of things just to build up, do the groundwork, jump on, get
Build
on the
up
opener.
awareness.
Exactly, exactly. Build up the awareness. But in Australia, it's fun. I've played shows here now for like it's probably going on 5 years, and they've just kind of gradually grew. And then I played my sold out my first ever headline show this year, which is like, and that's what I was talking about earlier, like the middle of Sydney. It was dead set in the middle of Sydney where you go back a few years and you're getting 10 people and that's it.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was really cool to see.
So are you in Sydney now?
Yeah, yeah, I'm in Sydney now. And it's pretty funny, like a lot of people view Sydney as like the city.
Yeah.
But we live on like acreage. We got horses, like
Oh,
at here, a heap of animals. Like we got everything here. So whenever I'm doing like a radio interview, whatever, they're like, "How can you be country living in Sydney?" And
oh,
I'm like, "Oh, I'm
fair.
like there's acreage in Sydney, right?" And they're like, "What?"
Yeah, I was gonna ask you, like, what are some of the disadvantages of being an Australian country artist? Like, do you find that people don't necessarily give you a chance, as sad as that is? Or do
I
you feel like
I
it actually helps you in ways?
I think when you're in Australia doing country music, this year's been super different than any other year. So like I'll talk on previous years. Previous years, like no one really takes country music seriously because it wasn't at the forefront of everything. But this year it's been a lot easier. Like you drop a song and you're instantly getting 100,000 streams more than you would have because everyone's listening to country at the moment. So this year's been a lot easier, but usually it's just like people not taking you that serious in Australia. But then I had the like complete opposite experience when I was in America because you have the Australian accent and that kind of opens some doors for you and people
Yeah,
just want to
open
talk to you.
conversations.
Yeah, people just want to talk to you. They're just like, hey, speak. I'm like, okay.
I speak.
Yeah, so a lot of my time there was literally just talking to people because they would say to me, like, we love Australian accents, just talk. And then the end of the conversation would be like, so what do you do for music?
Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
Yeah, so
But it's worth it.
it's a yeah, it's what do they call it? It's like being a double-edged sword. Here, it's getting better, which is great, but over there I had no troubles and
Oh, okay, so that's good. That's super good. What are like some of your artists that you always looked up to in country music and that like you dream like do you have like dream rights, dream tours, stuff like that?
yeah, the I've always been watching Morgan Wallen since he was on The Voice, which is kind of funny to see the whole changes. Yeah, it's been a long time. So it's cool to see him get to the forefront of stuff and like doing it. I've always said, do you know One Republic and Ryan Tedder?
Yeah.
And so Ryan Tedder's like my dream. I have like a dream list of what it would be. So the right would be Morgan Wallen, Ryan Tedder,
Ooh.
um, produced by Josh Kerr, which I'm mates with him and love what he's doing, and then mixed by Serban, which is like the best mix engineer in the world.
My
So
God. You have
that's
this
like,
down. Wow.
that's always been the dream thing. But in terms of artists and who I've looked up to, it's funny you said Thomas Rhett because he was always I've always been just like acoustic vocal. And he's very acoustic vocal. So that was definitely one person I'm like, oh, who's doing that that I can kind of mold off what they've
You're
done.
like literally Australian Thomas Rhett, so
I like that. That's good. I'll take that. Um, yeah, so him, but then the early stuff, like I said, like Alan Jackson and Garth Brooks were the top of the list. And I always was a massive, massive fan of Brad Paisley because he always had sick guitar licks and riffs throughout all of his songs. And
yeah.
that's what I wanted to. That's why, like, my whole EP, there's a guitar solo in every single song.
Yeah. Wow, okay. So do you have like anything coming down the line that you wanna, tell people about or
We haven't announced it yet, so I'll say it here first. We've got another single coming, which is my favorite one out of the whole everything we've ever written in December. So December 1st, we're gonna drop a song called Dirt on it, which is super cool. And then year, early January, we're probably got another EP coming. We're just sorting out the songs for it. So
You've
it's
dropped so
exciting.
much music lately, but that's the way to do it. That's what they say, right?
Like when I first signed with my team, they're like, "What do you want to do?" Like, I'm really fortunate that they said to me, What is it you want to do?" And I'm like, "Well, I write songs every day. I can produce them myself. I've got great people around me that can help produce them and mix and everything. I'm like, what's the point of having songs sitting in the bank? There's no, if you and I'm of the belief that you don't hold your best song back. If you have your best song, because that could be the one song someone hears, right?
Mhm.
So drop the best song and then challenge yourself to write a better one. And so that's what we've done. We just wrote all these songs that we really love and put them out, and then write other ones and put them out. And that's the plan for us. We're just going to keep dropping music and EPs and albums and as much as we can, really.
That's really exciting. So your team, do they, I know you were saying they're like a records, but they're also like just management. So is that something that you said they found you just online, right?
Yeah, yeah. They just found me on YouTube.
Wow, that's that. Wow, YouTube. That's crazy. I thought you were gonna say Instagram. So do you feel that they like, I don't know, like do they come to Nashville with you when you go to Nashville? Um, kind of like what's
They,
your relationship with them? That like I'm just
they
curious.
We're literally like a bunch of brothers. Like, and that's how I've always run things. I've got brothers and I've got sisters, and I said everything to me has to be a family. Like, there's no one person bigger than the project. And so when I went out there, they're like, "Do you want us out there with you? We will come out there with you as soon as you get there." So literally 2 days after I was in Nashville, they were there with me.
Oh, good.
Um, yeah,
Yeah,
just
I was
coming
wondering,
around
you
and
said they were in Arizona, so that's why I was wondering like how that connection works. Okay, cool.
yeah, they just flew straight out there, and we filmed a music video out there. So we used the hotel room that's in my music video. It was actually my where my manager was staying. So so I went to see him, and I'm like, this is cool. Like, let's use this in the video. And so yeah, he came straight out, and he's got a few connections out there. He was previously in the hip hop world, and now obviously a lot of hip hop has migrated
Yeah,
into country music.
that's actually
Uh,
really cool.
and so his a lot of his connections are in Nashville. So he's like, I'll come out and we'll do a heap of meetings, and I'll introduce you to everyone. And yeah, it was really fun.
That's super helpful. I feel like most people I've been speaking to lately have like a not necessarily hip hop, but some sort of other background, whether it's pop or rock or something. And I feel like that influence just puts them at another level. Like when you have other influence other than country, that's what's happening right now. So I think you have a good team with you, so that's exciting. Um,
It's they're incredible in the way in the hip hop world. There's no shying away from being the best. Like, you look in the hip hop world, and they'll tell you how good they are. And
well,
so, like, maybe posts that I make that I'm like, oh, that's on the edge of like being a bit cocky or whatever. And they're like, don't worry about that. Like, the fans that love you are gonna love that post, and the people that are gonna hate you are gonna hate you for anything they want to hate for. So
that's how it goes.
got it. Yeah, literally. So like, their hip hop influence of like, who cares what other people think? Just post what you want to. I'm like, okay,
Do you guys wear cowboy boots over there? That's such a random question.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Everyone does. Yeah,
nice.
yeah.
I was
It's
just
it's
wondering
funny because
about the lyrics.
it's
Yeah.
it was funny to see a lot of my comments on TikTok and that are literally like, there's Australian cowboys, like Australia has cowboys. Like, we literally have places like a place called Tamworth, which is like a mini Nashville or a mini Texas, or like where it's just ranches and the people live and breathe roping and riding. That's what they've always done. That's what they do. And I remember I did a TikTok about it, and people were just shocked, just like,
Wow.
uh,
Literally so true. People get, I mean, I didn't know necessarily down to that detail. I knew like the country scene was there though, but yeah, it's so you guys get like kind of excluded at times. It's like, oh, there is that there, but it's always so cool to learn about it.
Yeah, I have a mate that was as city as it gets. It's like as city as it gets. Never seen a speck of dirt in his life, and now he's full cowboy. Changed his whole life around. He just lives and breathes it. Hardly has a phone. He lives out in the middle of nowhere, rides in ropes every single day. He's moving cattle, and I'm like, how did you? And he's like, I didn't even know we had this in Australia. And he
Wow.
loves it.
Do you feel like the time zone difference is hard if you're like, I don't know how much you do you co-write with people in Nashville?
Yeah,
So is that hard to juggle, or is it just more so like we're doing right now? You just figure.
yeah, yeah. Kind of what we're doing right now. And I'm like, I'm up all day and all night anyway, so I'm pretty flexible. But I do have a lot of mates that they like their sleep, and it's very hard for that.
Do you think you'll move to Nashville if the opportunity comes?
I don't know if I'll move there, but I'll definitely spend a lot of time there. That's for sure. I love like moving around, and because of like I love dropping myself in a spot, working as hard as you possibly can, and then going to another spot and just like I think a lot of people potentially, I don't know if it happens, you might see it, move to Nashville and then think that's the job done. Like, okay, I'm where it all happens now.
Yeah.
And then they get lost and spend the rest of their lives chasing it. I like going to a place, working as hard as you can, and I also feel that kind of allows people to time to maybe look at what you've done there and go, oh, when you come back, I'd love to work with you.
Mm. Yeah, yeah. That's a little bit what's special about people that come and go because like you said, you like kind of plan your time maybe even better when you're there. But there is
Yeah,
a lot of opportunities, like you said, about like whiskey jam and stuff. That would be great to come and get your name out there more with other people in the industry, but I'm sure you're doing great at it. Um,
that
so
was one of the first. That was one of the first things I ever went to was Whiskey Jam, and there's a guy named Jimmy Ritchie. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him, but he like just knows everyone there, and so he took me out on my first night there and kind of introduced me to Ward and literally every person that is
yeah,
like just top of the chain of here's who you need to know to play festivals and shows here. And I was like, all right, it's really is they tell you it's all about connections and it is.
it literally is. It's more about connections and talent. That's what I always say. I mean, not that talent doesn't matter, but it's connections, timing, and work ethic. I mean, kind of like all those things.
Yeah, exactly. What's that saying? It's like when talent works hard, it's unstoppable or something like
Yeah, and then there's like another one. I will never remember them, so I'm not even gonna try.
that.
Someone said something the other day about like a quote like that about opportunity, yeah, and timing.
Yeah,
But um, so yeah, I pretty much wrap up each interview with like three questions. The first one might be a little hard for you because you're not in Nashville, but okay, so your favorite place to hang out in Nashville? I know you haven't been
I
there
would I
super.
would say, I can't remember the name of it, but it's right across the road from Whiskey Jam. It's the Mexican place.
Oh gosh, I'm not sure. Wait,
Oh, it's
it's
amazing. It's either across the road from it's literally right across the road from Whiskey Jam.
I'm really bad at if I haven't eaten there, which I know I haven't, remembering the names.
Oh
Wait, a taco place. Okay.
yeah, it's amazing. But literally every night we're having um, margaritas with queso and just like I don't know what they call it, corn chips.
Tortilla chips. Yeah.
Yeah, literally every night.
Okay, so the place across from Whiskey J- And then okay, favorite all-time artist, which you kind of touched on before. But if you had
Yeah, it's such a mix because I'm like I don't have one singular person that I'm like put on a pedestal and I'm like this is the person, but like if there was three that I could mix, it would be like Garth, Morgan, and Alan. That's
Mm,
if I could put together, that'd be a pretty good artist putting
that
all
would be
those
pretty
three.
crazy. Alan's my favorite though.
Yeah, he's like I love that he was the one of the first artists that kind of just decided like I'm gonna make a music video that's just like the funnest music video ever, and it doesn't even have to make sense. Like he was one of the first people to do that, and I'm like, I love it.
Yeah. Oh, I know, he's my favorite. Okay, and then favorite up and coming artist.
Ooh, an artist. I've been listening to a lot lately. Do you know Fillmore?
I know of them. like I know, but I'm not because some I know of it because someone said it the other day, but I'm not very familiar. So
Yeah, they got a few songs that just I think are really great, but haven't had like that exposure to be amazing. But they've got a lot of streams. Like by saying they haven't got exposure, they've got a lot of streams. But at the same time, it's not like it's one of those songs I heard that I'm like, this should be a Billboard #1, not like
you know.
their country.
So that would be it. Someone.
Yeah, I think so. That's a
There's
good question.
many songs like that. Like it's like, why is this not a highway find, or why is this not like on some sort of charts? But it's just timing and connection.
I
No,
know.
it's yeah. I'm super
Yeah,
excited for everything you have going on though, and everything that you're gonna have coming out too.
thank you. It's gonna be fun, and thanks for having me on. It's like I said, as soon as I seen your post with Mary, I'm like, this is the greatest thing ever. Because I've always wanted to kind of do a similar thing where you talk about behind the scenes. Because it's like I said, being the artist and also the producer, you get to see those artist moments that are like, oh, I wish someone would have talked about that or caught that moment,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
then kind of getting to do this stuff, you get to talk about those moments.
yeah. Well, it's so great to have you on, and yeah, let us know if you ever want to jump on again and talk about it more.
Amazing. Will do. Thank you for having me.